Steve Wiseman of the Raleigh News and Observers. We're getting ready for Syracuse and Duke, 7 o'clock tomorrow night. All right, Steve, welcome in. Thanks so much for hopping on and taking a few minutes today.
Yeah, glad to be with you. I was in the Dome that day when I thought, we were ready to see Zion play too, and of course, he blew out his shoe 2 days before that, so that was a terrible thing.
Yeah, it was it was literally the game before that, and I'd say most of the time, like, fans are like, well, you don't want to wish injury on a guy, but like, hey, if the other team's best player's out, that's good for the home team. That was a day where, like, man, like, this guy was a force of nature. I wanted to take that in person.
Yeah, that was a whole season full of that. And you did get to see R.J. Barrett that day, who ended up being a lottery pick by the Knicks. So I guess that was a consolation prize. But Cooper Flagg is worth seeing as well, I have to say.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you, Steve. Like, you've seen a lot. I mean, Duke has guys like this more often than Syracuse fans would care to talk about. But, like, so you've seen a lot of these guys, and, you cover that area. You've seen Carolina guys. You've seen all these guys. Where on the, like, man, you got to see this in person scale are you putting Cooper Flagg?
Yeah, he's up there. I mean, I've been on this beat since Kyrie Irving, the little bit that he played for Duke before he got hurt. So Kyrie was pretty good. And there's been a bunch of them through the years. Tyus Jones and Jabari Parker and Brandon Ingram and all that. Jason Tatum. Flagg is up there with Zion. Zion was such, like you used the word, kind of a freak of nature. The dunks that he did, like the dunks that Cooper Flagg did against Pitt, they got so much attention, was fantastic. But like Zion did that every night. So that's the type of player Cooper is. Cooper's a different type of player. He affects the game in all aspects of it. He leads Duke in points, rebounds, blocks, steals, assists. He's just such a natural, fluid player. He said the first 17, 18 points of the game against Carolina the other night, he either scored them or assisted on it. He played a role in all those points. So that's the type of player you're seeing. He's going to be a great NBA player because he's so involved in everything, and he's 6'9", and can shoot three-pointers and everything. So, but he's not like the highlight reel every night of Zion. That was a kind of a shooting star, once-in-a-lifetime thing. But for a real basketball enthusiast, Cooper is really something to watch.
Yeah, I'd say Zion, I almost just wanted to see the warm-ups more than anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But, and obviously, Zion's had a, star-crossed NBA career here because he's been hurt all the time. When you look at Cooper, and you say that, I mean, it's just yelling out the modern NBA game, right? With the three-point shooting, being the size he is, being able to do it all. Of these guys you've seen, how do you think he's going to fit in when we start talking next level for a guy that, barring something weird, is going to be the number one pick in the draft?
Yeah, he's going to fit in very well. Kind of like Tatum has become one of the better players in the NBA, right? I mean, and he's been a better pro than he was at Duke because he had a little bit of injuries and stuff. But, Flagg, yes, fits in exactly what you want for the modern NBA player with the way he can guard 1 through 5. He can pass the ball, very well and shoot three-pointer, score from any area of the court, three-point, mid-range, obviously inside at 6'9". He's as close to a can't-miss prospect as you'll see, and so that's why since he's been in high school, everybody's been waiting for him to get in the draft so they can get him. Yeah,
and you see so many guys these days, right? I feel like freshmen end up like, oh, they're 19, or they've had a prep school year, whatever. He turned 18. What, a month and a half ago? What can you tell us about, maturity level and all this for a guy that a lot's coming to him at this age?
Yeah, I mean, his birthday was December 21st, so you can mark that on your calendar. That's when he turned 18. That was the day Duke beat Georgia Tech down in Atlanta. So, like last summer when he was 17, he was, out at the NBA, the Olympic team camp in Vegas, going against the Olympic team, right? All those great NBA stars and in practice, scrimmaging with them and everything. And the first day he was there, he was kind of starstruck, and you could see it. Like John Shire was there and watched him, and all right, let's see how he handles this. The first day he wasn't quite as good, but he got that one little bit of experience, and the next day he was making those plays that had become a highlight reel on YouTube, right? So he learns very quickly, and it might take him a second to kind of get his footing, but once he does, he takes off, and that's what we've seen this year. I mean, he didn't do as well early in November late game situations against Kansas and Kentucky when Duke lost those games. He had some turnovers, but now he's making those plays and finishing those plays, and that's why they haven't lost the game since before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and I'd say LeBron, among others, was very complimentary of his game going back to the summer when they played in that little series leading up to the Olympics. We got Steve Wiseman, Rally News and Observer, with us. It's Duke and Cuse in the Dome tomorrow at 7. So, all right, Cooper Flagg is the story for a lot of reasons. That said, you look at this Duke team, as a collective. I know Duke's had a lot of great teams over the years. This one's looking the part, it feels like right now, Steve.
Definitely the best team they've had since Zion's team in 2019. With R.J. Barrett as well, that got the Elite Eight. They won the ACC. Obviously, this team hopes to get further than the Elite Eight, and so they seem to have all the pieces. They obviously have Flagg, the superstar in the middle, who is doing everything. But Tyrese Proctor, the junior point guard, his third year as a starter, had a big game against Carolina. Scoring-wise, had 17 points. Fellow freshman with Cooper, Con Knippel, is Cooper's roommate, and he's been a starter all season long. And he had 22 points and 5 assists against Carolina as well. So you've got outside scoring, you've got you got Flagg, and then you've got Kamal Maliwatch, the 7'2" kid from South Sudan in Africa, who played in the Olympics last year in Paris for South Sudan national team, and he's only 17. And so he's just a force in the middle defensively. And so they have the young guys, but they have the experience with Proctor. They brought in the transfers. Sion James, Mason Gillis from Purdue, and a guy named Malik Brown, who I think you're probably going to talk about in a minute. But yes, Malik Brown is a huge part of this team. So that's one thing Shar was very intentional about, was bringing some experienced guys, because he knows he's going to need them when they get deep in March.
Yeah, Malik, who's that guy? We'll get to him in a second. I want to ask you about Proctor, because 2 years ago, He was one of the next in the line, right, of these big-time major recruits, probably going to be one and done, the whole thing. That didn't happen. Like, he was one of Shire's first big recruits as a head coach. But he's still there. That's extremely unusual in modern college basketball. What's the story with Proctor, that he's still here as a junior and he's actually kind of going old school and just getting incrementally better by the year?
Yeah, it is different. And, he's projected as a second-round pick right now, so he's still not, a lottery pick like they usually get when these guys come in. But he came in a year early from Australia. He's an Australian kid, and so it took him a year to get used to things. And last year, frankly, his offense was not consistent enough for him to make the jump to the NBA yet. He had some injury problems. He was out for a month with an ankle injury, and then he got a concussion in February. So, my memory of him from last season was at the end of the year, they lost to NC State in the Elite Eight. Proctor was scoreless, and he's in the locker room after the game with a towel over his head, sobbing in his locker because they lost and didn't get to go to the Final Four, and had such a terrible game. So I know he spent a lot of the off season. That was fuel to his fire, right? That helped him try to get better, and he's been a better offensive player this year, but he hasn't been consistent yet. He had some single-digit scoring games just recently before that breakout game against Carolina, so he's still not quite as consistent as they want him to be. Even they had a game against Wake last weekend where they won, but he was 1 out of 11 from the field before he hit a late three-pointer to kind of seal the game. So he's an important part of this team, and when he's at his best, like he was against Carolina on Saturday night, it almost makes them unbeatable because they have Flagg and they have Knippel doing things. And when they get that second and third score, nobody's going to beat them with the way they play defense. Yeah, and
speaking of defense, that's where Malik Brown certainly comes in the conversation. He missed 5 games with a knee injury, was back on Saturday for the Carolina game. How does he fit into what Duke's got going on? We watched him for 2 years here, and he does all the little stuff you want, right? It feels like he's just slotted into that same role with Duke.
Definitely, he is the sixth man for them. First one off the bench. Usually before the under 4 timeout, he's in for Maliwatch, and then that allows them when he's in the game to switch at all 5 positions. Maliwatch can do it a little bit, but not like Malik Brown can. He can guard anybody on the court, as you know, and he's the king of deflections. It was so appropriate. The first play, not even 10 seconds in the game there today against Carolina, he knocked the ball away from Jalen Washington led to a fast break for Duke on the other end. So that's how he's fit in. He's brought a mentality about defense, and that's what Shire last summer was working with his team was the defense is going to be the foundation. We'll build the offense from there. And they're one of the better defensive teams in the country. But Malik Brown is a huge part of that. And you could tell when he was out, Duke had to play some zone in a couple of games because, they went against Wake Forest because they just didn't have the switching at all five positions like they like to do. So that's why they're so happy that Brown is back and healthy.
Explain his role to us, because is he playing primarily center there? Because part of Syracuse's fans' point of contention is he said he didn't want to play center here last year. Now he goes to Duke and he's back. He's coming off the bench, and it's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, he is. But again, he's on the perimeter as much as he's inside because he's also on the court with Flagg, who's 6'9", who's not a true, obviously, a post player, but he can protect the rim just like anybody else can. But it's very rare that Malik Brown and Naluwatch are on the court at the same time. They usually switch one for the other. And so, yeah, he is technically the 5 in Duke's defense when he's on the court. But again, he'll guard. He'll be out there on the perimeter as much as inside because of the switching they do. Okay,
gotcha. Yeah, it's one of those things like last year, it was not his preferred role because he had to be banging with all these bigger guys. But, funny how being on a top 5 team changes those thought processes.
Exactly.
Here, as we get Steve Wiseman from the Raleigh News and Observer. All right, Steve, you've seen this league for a while. I get Duke's doing really good. The rest of the ACC, I feel they've had a perception problem for years. This year, it feels like the perception is actually reality, that the league is down. What is your sense of this league, kind of outside Duke when you look at it right now?
Yeah, it is. It's tough. It's tough to see more than 5 teams getting in the NCAA tournament, and that's. You're right. The last couple of years, it was, oh no, how can that only be? And now this year, they'll be fortunate to get 5. They may only get 4, especially last night when Pitt lost to Virginia at home. That was just a terrible loss for them. So yeah, it's tough. And what we're seeing is, the brain drain. And our columnist wrote about that today after Leonard Hamilton announced his news yesterday. That kind of completes it. You're right. You lost Roy Williams, Coach K, Boeheim, Tony Bennett, Larraga, and now Leonard Hamilton. So now it's the next wave of coaches. Somebody has to come in and establish themselves as we're going to be the next line of great ACC coaches. And so there's a lot of unanswered questions about that. Shire's doing a good job at Duke, obviously. Hubert Davis isn't doing so well at Carolina. He's not living up to their standard over there. So Kevin Keats at NC State went to the Final Four last year, and now they might not make the ACC tournament this year, not the NCAA, the ACC tournament, because the bottom 3 don't go. So that's what we're seeing is some other coaches have to step up and show that they are willing to have the chops to get it done. Maybe Pat Kelsey's going to be that guy at Louisville. He's certainly doing a great job this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly our main point of conversation around here with Red Autry and him following up Jim Boeheim. So let me ask you this in this way, Steve. Are Duke fans thus far, now midway through the 3rd year, satisfied with John Shire?
They are to a certain extent. He hasn't been to the Final Four yet. And so that's the next step. He needs to get to the Final Four with his team. Otherwise, there's going to be questions. And he went all in this year with this group. He made a lot of changes in the offseason. Jeremy Roach was told to find somewhere else to play. He'd been there for 4 years and part of the last Final Four team. Mark Mitchell transferred to Missouri. Same thing. He was going to play the same position as Cooper Flagg. Well, that wasn't going to work, so they picked Flagg. And that was a good choice. But that tells you the almost cutthroat nature that John had to take into this season, because he knows, as he told me last summer, I have one chance to coach Cooper Flagg. I have to build the best team I can around him and maximize his talent so that this team can win. So, yes, Duke fans are extremely happy with the way John Shire's led this team. I think he's 73-20 as a coach, so he won an ACC championship. But again, he's got to get over that hump and get to the Final Four and win a national championship to really cement himself as the guy that followed K.
All right, Steve, give Cuse fans some semblance of hope for tomorrow night. What has to happen in your mind for Syracuse to give Duke a game here tomorrow?
Well, Duke's got to shoot poorly from 3. That's what happened against NC State and Wake the last weekend when they had 2 closer games than what they had been recently. Most of the games in this winning streak have been by double digits or 20 points. Those were an 8-point game and a 10-point game. And Duke shot very poorly from 3-point. They'll have to not take care of the ball. They didn't take care of the ball well against Wake Forest, and they almost lost on the road over there. So it's going to be some of those things. Duke's going to have to help Syracuse, if they're going to upset them. They're going to have to make some mistakes. Those are the biggest thing. Duke's defense is really, really good, especially with Brown back. It's hard to see them giving up more than 60, 65 points. So it's going to have to take Duke having an extremely poor offensive game for Syracuse to have a chance. And for Syracuse to take advantage of some Duke turnovers and get some easy baskets that way, that would have to happen as well.
Yeah, it looks like early point spreads out. We're showing about 17.5, I think, is the early number on the game. So that probably sounds about right for what we're all thinking going into this one. All right, Steve, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Yep, glad to be with you. Take care.
All right, there's Steve Wiseman, covers Duke, as he does down at the Raleigh News and Observer. Interesting to get the thoughts on Cooper Flagg, Malik Brown, and the Duke experience.